Imagine this scenario. It's the summer of 2026,
Okay.
and you're standing on the teak deck of a ship that probably cost um, about $1.2 billion to build.
Right. A massive investment.
You're floating in the Mediterranean, maybe just off the coast of Santorini. The sun is setting, you have a drink in hand, and you are surrounded by the absolute cutting edge of maritime engineering.
It really is the peak of the experience.
It is, and we're talking about an industry that is projecting nearly 6 million passengers in this region alone for the year.
Yeah, that is a staggering number. I mean, to put that in perspective, that's effectively the entire population of Singapore.
Wow.
Just all floating around the Mediterranean Sea at the exact same time.
Yeah.
It's really the definition of a golden age for the cruise industry right now.
Exactly. It feels like the peak of civilization, right?
Yeah.
You're surrounded by glittering lights. Maybe you're even planning to watch the World Cup on a massive LED screen by the pool later that night.
Which is a huge draw this year.
Right. But then, fast forward to 3:00 a.m. on a Tuesday in February?
Yeah.
The music stops.
The lights go out.
The air conditioning dies. And then the toilets stop flushing.
That is the scenario that absolutely no brochure talks about.
No, definitely not. And suddenly you aren't on a floating palace anymore. You're just in a dark metal box drifting off the coast of Greece.
Yeah.
And this isn't a hypothetical, by the way. This is the reality we really need to unpack today.
Because it's the central tension of the 2026 season. We have this massive trajectory of growth and investment on one side.
Ships getting bigger.
Bigger, more expensive, incredibly high tech. But on the other hand, we have the fragility of the experience.
Right.
Because when the hardware fails, all that luxury evaporates instantly.
So today we're going on a deep dive into the state of cruising in 2026. And we're looking at 3 specific things.
Okay, let's lay it out.
First, the sheer scale of this Mediterranean boom and the shift to these so-called mega ships. Why does the market look so different than it did just 5 years ago?
Second, we're going to look at how these lines are fighting for your attention on board.
The entertainment factor.
Exactly. We're going to specifically look at the 2026 World Cup strategy, how lines like MSC are using a massive global sporting event to capture your wallet while you're at sea.
And third, we're doing a serious reality check. We're dissecting the very recent incident involving the Celebrity Infinity off the coast of Greece in February 2026.
Right, the power loss.
We're going to look at the logistics of a Code Bravo, the absolute nightmare of a vacuum toilet failure, and the economics of the compensation they offered the guests.
It really serves as a perfect case study for what happens when things go wrong in a tightly scheduled season.
It does. And our mission today is pretty straightforward. If you're the learner here, someone prepping for a trip, or maybe you're just fascinated by how this industry moves millions of people around the globe, we want you to understand the landscape.
It's not just about picking a destination anymore.
No, it's not. It's about weighing the excitement of the new vessels against the real operational risks of the older fleets.
It's a risk-reward calculation that I think a lot of travelers just completely overlook until the lights actually go out.
Totally. Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's start with the juggernaut that is the Mediterranean market. You mentioned 6 million passengers earlier.
Yeah, nearly 6 million.
That is a ton of people. But when I looked at the data you sent over, the ship count isn't rising at the same rate as the passenger count. What exactly is going on there?
So this is probably the most important trend to understand if you're booking a trip right now. We are seeing a 3.7% year-over-year increase in capacity in the Med.
Okay.
Now you might think, oh, they're just launching tons of new ships into the water.
Just flooding the zone.
But that's not entirely it. I mean, while there are over 180 ships from 57 different lines operating there, the capacity jump is largely driven by the sheer size of the ships.
Okay, so it's a displacement game.
Exactly. They are swapping out smaller, older vessels for these massive floating cities. It's a game of hull count versus capacity.
Got it.
If you replace a ship that holds 2,000 people with one that holds 5,000, you have more than doubled your revenue potential without actually doubling your operational overhead.
Because you still only need one captain.
Right. One captain, one chief engineer, one port docking fee.
I mean, that makes total sense from a spreadsheet perspective, but it fundamentally changes the port experience for you as a traveler.
Oh, entirely.
If I'm in Dubrovnik and 2 of these megaships pull in on the same morning, the town is just gone.
It changes everything about the logistics on the ground. And what's really interesting is who is driving this growth. I think here in North America, we're heavily conditioned to think of the big 3.
Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, and Celebrity.
Right, we just assume they dominate the world because they dominate the Caribbean.
Yeah, they're the household names. If I ask my neighbor to name a cruise line, they're going to name one of those three.
But in the Mediterranean, those three are actually the minority.
Really?
Yeah, if you look at the 2026 capacity share, Royal, NCL, and Celebrity combined only hold about 18% of the market.
Wait, only 18%? That seems incredibly low.
It is low. The market is actually dominated by the European giants, MSC Cruises and Costa Cruises. Just those two lines alone control nearly 40% of the entire Mediterranean capacity.
Wow. 40%. So if you're an American booking a Med cruise in 2026, statistically, you're very likely to be on a European line like MSC or Costa.
Or at the very least, you're going to be staring at one of their ships across the pier when you're in port.
Right. And that's a cultural shift for a lot of North American travelers, isn't it?
Precisely. MSC and Costa operate very differently than the big three. They're multilingual environments. The pacing of the day is different. The food service is different. It's just a much more international product overall.
That's really important context. But it's not just the giants, right? I saw some notes here about some interesting new players entering the chat. It seems like the market is kind of splitting.
Yes, and this is where the market gets super diverse. You have the giants getting bigger, but you also have newcomers trying to carve out a very specific niche.
Like who?
For example, look at Arroyo Cruises.
Oh, that's the Saudi back line, right?
Correct. They're positioning a ship in the Med for its second consecutive year now. And they're specifically targeting the Arab market, but also curious international travelers.
Okay.
And then on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you have the Orient Express brand.
I know them from the trains, obviously. You know, the murder mysteries.
Right, the classic luxury. Well, now they have the Corinthian. It's debuting in 2026. And this is ultra luxury.
Ah, I see.
And you also have Viking adding 2 new ships to its fleet in 2026. So while a mass market is getting bigger and way more crowded, the luxury and niche market is frantically trying to offer something very specific.
And usually much smaller.
Exactly, to compete against the crowds.
It really puts the money into perspective. I was looking at the global order book, basically the waiting list for new ships being built, and there are 77 ships coming over the next decade.
And the price tag is just eye-watering. The average cost right now is roughly $1 billion per ship.
1 billion with a B.
Correct. And the average capacity for those new builds is about 2,600 passengers. So the industry is betting roughly $76.9 billion that this growth is going to continue.
That is a staggering bet.
They're building these assets to last 20, 30 years.
Which perfectly brings us to our next point. If you spend $1 billion building a ship, you need to make sure people are entertained and spending money every single second they are on board.
You absolutely do.
And 2026 has a massive global event happening right in the middle of the summer season, the World Cup.
Right. June 11th to July 19th, 2026. This is a huge operational challenge, but also a massive opportunity for cruise lines.
How so?
Well, you have thousands of people trapped, or let's say gently contained on a ship.
Yeah.
And millions of them worldwide want to watch football.
Right. And this is where the strategy gets really interesting, because it's not just about showing the game, it's about how you show the game. Let's look at MSC Cruises. They made a pretty bold announcement about this.
They did. MSC announced they're going to air all 104 matches of the 2026 World Cup fleet-wide. But the how is what really matters here. Their strategy is heavily focused on public viewing.
So wait, you can't just curl up in your robe in your cabin and watch the game?
Well, they haven't confirmed in-cabin viewing in their big PR push. Their announcement specifically lists sports bars, casino bars, and this is the big one, pool decks with large LED screens.
Yeah.
They're also using designated lounges and theaters.
Okay, I see exactly what they're doing. It's about the atmosphere. But let's be honest, it's also about the bar tab, isn't it?
If we connect this to the business model, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're watching the match in your cabin, you might order room service, but that is generally low margin, maybe a club sandwich.
Right.
But if you're on the pool deck or packed into a sports bar, you're buying beers, you're buying cocktails, maybe snacks. You are socially engaged. It turns the match into a revenue-generating event.
It creates a vibe.
Exactly. Now compare that to Carnival Corporation lines like Princess and Holland America. They confirmed they are using the Sport 24 channel, which includes in-cabin viewing.
Okay, different approach.
Or NCL, which has 2 channels plus recordings available for 24 hours.
So if you're an introvert, maybe stick to Princess.
Or if you just want the option to watch a 2:00 a.m. match in your pajamas.
Yeah.
You have to remember time zones matter a lot here depending on where the ship is sailing versus where the games are being played.
Oh, that's true.
But MSC is really leaning into the fiesta aspect. They're even doing World Cup-themed quizzes, games, and family entertainment. They're essentially turning the whole ship into a fan zone.
And this isn't just happening in the Med.
Yeah.
We're rolling this out on ships like the MSC Poesia up in Alaska and the MSC Virtuosa in Northern Europe.
Right, along with the MSC Orchestra in the Mediterranean. It is a global strategy to keep engagement high on sea days, because a bored passenger is a passenger who isn't spending money.
That is such a great point. But here's where it gets really interesting, and honestly a little scary. We're talking about billion-dollar ships and high-tech entertainment and massive LED screens. But all of that relies on one fundamental thing: power.
Yes.
And when the power goes out, it really doesn't matter if you have the broadcast rights to the World Cup or a Michelin star chef in the kitchen. You are just floating.
And that brings us directly to the Celebrity Infinity incident.
Yeah, let's talk about this, because this just happened February 15th, 2026. This isn't ancient history. This is right now.
The timing and the location are really critical to understand here. It's 3:08 a.m.
Pitch black outside.
The ship is approaching Piraeus, which is the main port for Athens, Greece. And the ship is just ending a 13-night sailing.
And suddenly, lights out.
Total power loss. Guests reported no lights, no air conditioning, no Wi-Fi.
Wow.
It is dead silent. And crucially, no working toilets.
I feel like we really need to explain that part. Because why did the toilet stop working? In my house, if a storm knocks the power out, the toilet still flushes.
Right, but your house relies on gravity. A modern cruise ship relies on a vacuum system. It uses air pressure to suck waste through the miles of pipes, which saves a massive amount of fresh water. But that vacuum is created by electric pumps. No electricity, no vacuum.
That is the exact moment the vacation ends and survival mode begins. And then, as if that wasn't bad enough, passengers heard something over the PA system in the dark.
Yes.
Bravo, bravo, bravo.
Right. Now, in maritime language, across most lines, bravo usually indicates a fire.
Yikes. That is terrifying.
It really is. Now, Celebrity never publicly confirmed a fire for this specific incident. They just cited a technical issue in their later press releases.
Of course they did.
But hearing that code at 3:00 a.m. in the dark, that is terrifying for the passengers. You're disoriented, you can't see anything, and you hear a code word that strongly implies danger.
Absolutely. So what happened next? They're just drifting off the coast of Athens?
They actually required tugboats to get into port. And because of the delay and the severity of the issue, the cruise effectively ended a day early. They disembarked the passengers on February 15th instead of the 16th as planned.
What a mess.
But the real disruption was for the people who were supposed to stay on board.
You mean the back-to-back cruisers?
Yes. Imagine you booked 2 cruises in a row, which is a very common thing to do in the Med to see more ports. You're settled in your cabin. Suddenly, you're told to pack a bag, you're being sent to a hotel in Athens, but, and this is the detail that really sticks out, you are told not to leave your belongings on board.
Wait, they had to take everything with them.
The reports state they were advised not to leave belongings on board, implying they had to pack up entirely because the status of the ship was completely unknown.
That is wild.
Imagine having to pack up your entire 2-week vacation in emergency lighting or with a smartphone flashlight.
That is so stressful, but it actually turned out to be the right call, didn't it?
It did, because the following sailing, the Best of Greece itinerary scheduled for February 16th, was fully canceled.
That is a logistical nightmare for the cruise line. And we really have to talk about the ship itself here. Celebrity Infinity isn't exactly one of those new billion-dollar giants we were talking about earlier, is it?
No, and that is the key context. Infinity is a Millennium-class ship built in 2001. So in 2026, it is 25 years old.
Okay.
Now, ships can run for a long time, but here's the kicker. It had just come out of dry dock in France in January 2026.
Wait, so it's supposed to be in top shape?
Theoretically, yes. It went in for major maintenance and upkeep, and less than a month later, it suffers a catastrophic power failure.
Unbelievable.
And to add to the pattern, this exact same ship had a fire and a power outage in July 2025.
So 2 major power incidents in less than a year. That really raises some serious questions about the aging hardware operating in that region.
It does. We have this paradox right now. We have a booming market, record passenger numbers, and these shiny new ships entering the fleet. But a lot of the heavy lifting in the Mediterranean is still being done by these older vessels.
Right.
And when you have a tightly scheduled season where a ship has to be in a new port every single morning, there is zero margin for error. One failure cascades into mass cancellations, hotel bookings, and thousands of angry customers.
Speaking of angry customers, let's talk about how Celebrity tried to fix this, because this is a really important nugget for our listeners. If your cruise gets canceled because the ship breaks, what do you actually get?
Celebrity's response here was actually quite significant. I would argue it was very generous, which really reflects how intensely competitive the market is right now.
Yeah.
They know they cannot afford bad PR.
So break it down for us. What did they offer?
First, obviously, a full refund. That includes the cruise fare, any non-refundable deposits, and anything you prepaid, drinks, shore excursions, Wi-Fi. That is standard.
Right, you get your money back.
But then they added a 100% future cruise credit, or FCC.
So you get your money back plus a free cruise later.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Valid for a year on any Celebrity ship. That is a very strong please come back gesture.
That is huge, but I have to play devil's advocate here. A future cruise credit is basically a set of golden handcuffs, isn't it? You have to spend it with them. You can't take that value and go book a Viking cruise instead.
That is true. It locks you into their ecosystem. But for a loyal customer, it feels like double value. However, the real friction point, and where listeners really need to pay attention, is the airfare.
I saw the reimbursement caps in the notes. They seem pretty tight.
They offered reimbursement caps for air change fees, up to $200 for domestic flights and $400 for international flights.
$400 for international. I don't know about you, but changing a last-minute international flight usually costs way more than $400.
Exactly. If you flew from New York to Athens and suddenly you have to fly home 3 days later or completely change your route, that could cost $1,000 easily.
Oh, without a doubt.
The cap protects the cruise line's liability, but it leaves the passenger footing a pretty big bill.
They also offered up to $300 per night for hotels, right?
2 nights max, yes. And $100 per guest credit for incidentals like food. It helps, but if you're stuck in Athens in peak season, finding a quality room for $300 might actually be tough.
So they're taking care of you on the cruise side, giving you the refund and the credit, but you might still be significantly out of pocket on the travel and logistics side.
Right. And this connects right back to that 6 million passenger number we started with. When you have that many people choosing where to spend their money, maintaining brand loyalty is everything.
Yeah.
If Celebrity treated these passengers poorly, those people would jump straight to MSC or Virgin or Viking next year. They had to buy back the goodwill.
So what does this all mean for someone looking at booking a trip in 2026? We have covered a lot of ground here today.
I think we need to synthesize this into sort of a user's guide for 2026. We have 3 main dots to connect.
All right, dot one, the boom.
The market is huge. Investment is at an all-time high. If you go to the Med in 2026, you need to expect crowds, expect big, bustling ships. If you hate crowds, you need to be very careful about your ship choice.
Makes sense. Dot two, the experience.
The cruise lines are fiercely fighting for your attention. Whether it is MSC broadcasting the World Cup on the pool deck or massive new onboard concepts, the ship itself is becoming the destination just as much as Rome or Athens. You have to decide, do I want the party or do I want the peace?
And finally, dot three, the risk.
This is the one people always forget. You are on a machine, and machines break. The Celebrity Infinity is a stark reminder that even after a fresh coat of paint and a dry dock, a 25-year-old ship has vulnerabilities.
It really creates a fascinating paradox, doesn't it? You can choose the brand new billion-dollar megaship and deal with 5,000 other people at the buffet.
Right.
Or you can choose the older, smaller, maybe more charming ship, but you might be taking a slightly higher risk on the hardware reliability.
That is exactly the trade-off. And I think the takeaway for the listeners to really ask themselves what their priority is. If you're booking for June 2026, are you booking because you want to watch the World Cup final in the middle of the Mediterranean with 1,000 screaming fans?
Because if so, then MSC is your play.
But if you're booking for a quiet Greek Isles itinerary,
Then look closely at the ship's age. Look at its recent history. Maybe that shiny new Viking ship or the new Orient Express vessel offers a reliability buffer that an older ship doesn't, albeit at a much higher price point.
it is fascinating how a simple vacation choice actually involves all these layers of strategy, engineering, and global economics.
I know, it really is.
Like a microcosm of the world, just floating on the ocean.
I want to leave everyone with one last thought today. We spend so much time talking about the luxury side of things, the billion-dollar order books, the massive LED screens, the celebrity chefs.
Yeah.
But when that power cut out on the Infinity, the most impactful thing wasn't the high-end technology.
No, it wasn't.
It was a simple code word: Bravo.
It is a very humbling reminder. We build these floating cities to conquer the elements, but in the end, we are still just sailors trying to keep the lights on and the ship moving.
Well said. A little humility goes a long way, even on a megaship. That is all for this deep dive. Thanks for exploring the high seas with us. Safe travels, everyone.
See you on the next deep dive.